You finally found the perfect car in racing blue. You even got them to throw in the LED fog lights for free. Auto Owners insures your car because some people never learn to parallel park. That's simple human sense. Keep going. More. No, stop!
Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the Red Raider Coaches Show. I'm your host, Brent Johnson, along with Coach Austin Wilder and Coach Noble Coley. I want to thank you for joining us again. This is the 6th week of the season. It'll only be our fifth game. Yeah, we're 2-2. We had to, a game was canceled due to weather issues, so we're only going to play a 9-game schedule this year. That's why we're off just a little bit. But 2-2 on the season. We haven't quite made it to our region schedule yet. We're just a couple weeks away. We've had a week off, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth in just a minute. But it's good to be back. It's good to have a new coach on the show with us. Coach Wilder has been with us the first week or so, and he introduced himself. And you can go back to those shows and get the information that I'm about to bleed from Coach Noble Coley here. He's been with us a little bit longer than some of the other coaches on this staff. And he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, where he's from, and his background, his education, and then up until this point. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I am from Hawkinsville, Georgia, where I went on and played a couple years of football and baseball there, and then went to Georgia Southwestern, where I got my degree and played baseball at Georgia Southwestern. I've spent 6 years at Coffee, where I taught at Nichols Elementary and did football, baseball, and this is my 7th year here at Bacon County, where I've done baseball, football, cross country for 1 year. Kind of been around it all, but happy to be here.
All right, tell our listeners what your current position is on the staff of the football team.
I am the O-line coach.
O-line coach. And he's also, that's where you've seen him prior most likely, is he's the head baseball coach.
Yes.
As well, the Red Raiders. All right, guys, we'll just jump right into it. A couple weeks, it's been 2 weeks. I talked to several people. I wish we hadn't had a week off last week. I wish we'd have carried some of that momentum into, and you say momentum even after a loss, but sometimes you can have momentum after playing well. Playing well on the field, we just didn't quite get it done on the scoreboard. But there was a lot of things that we can take, and you're going to discuss those things from an offensive and a defensive standpoint as we progress here. But let's just talk a little bit about clinch. What was your initial thoughts, Coach Wilder, following the game, and how everything transpired?
I think defensively we played well. There was some spots that, they have a really good athlete. I said that on the show that they had a really good athlete, and at times he got behind us. But for the most part, we played well defensively. We held up in the run game. We held up in the pass game when we needed to, and we played physical all night. That's one thing we're going to try to do is play physical, and we showed that we could match their physicality. And, we tackled, we ran to the ball well, we exploited some things blitz-wise that we were able to capitalize on. But, You know, I was very proud of our kids. I was very proud of the D-line, the linebackers, secondary, the whole group in general. I was proud of them, how physical they played, and how they were able to match the intensity of the game and not let the atmosphere of the game, everything that was going on that week, you know, distract them for what they were going to do. I mean, Rasheed Slade, I was standing right there. Rasheed Slade won homecoming king. He came back over to me. He said, "That's over now. It's time for game." So just that focus, you know, that laser focus that we need from these kids, and they showed it Friday. Even though we came up short, I mean, like you said, I mean, we're not in the moral victories by no means, but at the end of the day, that's a lot of momentum going into this week and going into an off week, and knowing that it don't matter who steps out on the grass. We can play as long as we're focused and determined and ready to go like we were Friday night.
And that's exactly how I felt. You know, when you mentioned something there, and folks at home, if you didn't remember, just a couple weeks ago, it was homecoming. And man, it was such a big week. And sometimes I think we go overboard on certain things, but then again, it really does bring our school together in a sense of pride and pageantry, and it culminated to that night. You know, sometimes we had a former coach about 10 years ago. He hated homecoming week because he felt like it was such a distraction. But I think you can harness and you can mold and make it into something, again, just as long as you can keep the boys focused, and that's what happened. And you talk about a big night, not just the homecoming stuff and the festivities. There was extra people in the stands for that. That was one of the biggest nights of football that we've had in that stadium. And I'm almost positive since, was it 14 or 15 season that we hosted Pierce County, the famous Stetson Bennett. You know, that's kind of a joke. It's funny how he can win back-to-back national championships for the University of Georgia, but he couldn't beat Bacon County. I want to point that out there. John DuPont, if you watch our show, he does the stuff over in Pierce County. But yeah, it wasn't too big for our guys, and that's mentally. And we've been talking about that as we progressing through the week or through the season. Is these guys are getting it. They understand what they have to do to prepare mentally, and not just to start the game, but to finish it. And that's what they did. As you know, tell us a little bit about, you know, Coach, your perspective on, you know, the second half of the game when we were down. What was it, 28-13 at one time in the third quarter, late in the third. I mean, you know, what did you see on the sidelines, and how did you coaches respond, and how did you see the boys respond?
You know, the biggest thing that I take from it, you know, we came back out, and I can, you know, Coach Wilson still asked about it, but we came over to the tent after driving. I put the iPad aside. I said, you know, don't worry about scheming anymore. You've got to want it more than they do. You've got to out-physical them. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And they responded, and we started clicking. It was a big night offensively for us. We could kind of move the ball and do what we wanted to. We kind of stalled out at times, you know, a few self-inflicted things.
Yeah.
And while we talk about that momentum, you know, wishing we had played last week, sometimes having that week off to get back to the basics and try to take care of some of those little small things that we've been doing that stall out or drives.
Right.
You know, sometimes those weeks are good.
Yeah.
But offensively, you know, we moved the ball. We had success. We could do kind of what we wanted to do. And we did. We just came up a little short right there at the end. But, you know, we got after it in the trenches with O-line. You know, the backs trusted the blocks, stayed behind it, and executed. We had some success passing the ball a little bit, and that was big for us.
Well, you know, you said the little things, and it was some little things, and sometimes little things are magnified when you're playing a team of that caliber. And let's be honest, you know, Clinch County has a history of being competitive in football. One of the, I don't know, you'd say not a dynasty, but they're a program that has been successful for a couple decades, you know, year in and year out, and they know how to win. They know what it takes mentally and physically, and we matched that night. And that alone encourages me about our guys and their mentality, because let's be honest, Bacon County doesn't have a history of winning a bunch of football games, but we've always known we've been able to do it It's that competitive nature. And that's the culture that you guys are building, and that's important. And you mentioned the word physicality several times a while ago, and absolutely, I up in the booth, we were backing to all of us, there was 10 or 8 or 10 people up there, and you could just hear us all hooting and hollering about this and that and the other. And that was one thing that we all agreed upon, is how physical we were that night with them. And even after the game, we were cleaning up our stuff, walking down, and their radio guy seemed like a nice guy. He was walking down after he was cleaning his stuff up. I said, "Guy, it was a pretty good game tonight." He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Y'all got a pretty good athlete on your team." He said, "Yeah." Y'all did a pretty good job containing him." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Y'all may have had and I was wrong for this, but I said, y'all may have had the best single player on the field. I think we had the best team tonight." And then he wanted to say, "Well, it was probably a little letdown for us because of the big win they had over Cook County." That was going to be his excuse from the week before, and it was a big win for them over Cook. But irregardless, anybody that was there, if they watched the film, they watched our broadcast, they know that Bacon County showed up and give ourselves an opportunity to win the game. But again, unfortunately, some self-inflicted stuff. When even small stuff is magnified when you're playing a good team, and you've got to minimize those things to do that. So after the game, even though it's a loss, how was the boys' spirits after that?
I think they were, nobody wants to lose. And our
Right.
kids this team is very competitive. Each individual is very competitive. Coaches, from players to coaches. And, I think they were, we give them a 24-hour rule. I think that's everybody's kind of main thing, but I think it was more of a 15-minute after Coach Wilson said something, they were ready to go to work. So in this off week, this past off week, they were able to go out and get it done, and they came focused, and so now we're in game week now.
That's right.
And so now it's continued. We had a little rain yesterday,
Yeah.
but coming out on when was it, Tuesday? Tuesday it rained. Tuesday it was raining. Coach Wilson made the call, let's go out there unless it's lightning. And then boys went out there and showed up and showed out in the rain. So I think it was something that impacted them. I think they were very hurt by the loss, but they were also ready and prepared to go to work for the off week. They knew that, these games are coming up on region are very pivotal in our season.
That's right.
And that they can't get so down about something that coulda, woulda, shoulda, So, but they did a really good job, and I think it was more of a 15-minute thing after Coach Wilson got done talking.
Yeah.
And they were ready to go.
Well, good. Now, it is game week. It's been 2 weeks. We're going to have 2 travel games, 2 away games. Tomorrow night, we'll be heading over to East Dublin, to East Lawrence High School. And then next week, we'll travel to Johnson County. That may be the first trip Bacon County's ever made to Johnson County. I have to do a little history look up on that. But first things first is East Lawrence, and I have to bring up what happened last year. It's one of those things where it's not so much we get back at the team for what happened, East Lawrence for what happened last year, and rarely you will see me. I've watched a lot of sports over the years at different levels. Rarely you'll see me throw referees under the bus. But there was some horrible mistakes made last year that costed our team a win, and that's the bottom line. I got it on film. We sent it in. They reviewed it. Obviously, it's hard for them to reverse stuff like that. But there was a situation, and when your kids fight, and the refs should not determine the game. It should be settled on the field between the 2 teams and the coaching staffs and that sort of thing, but not the referees. Rarely does one single play determine the outcome of a game, but in that game you could pinpoint at least 1, possibly 2. So it's more of a, we're going to get this win this year versus, again, going over and having a grudge necessarily against East Lawrence, but just putting ourselves in a position to do that. One thing I wanted to ask, and I like to ask these questions because people, these folks that listen and watch this show, they may think about this stuff in the stands, but they don't really know who or how to ask it. We're going to play at a place where they have artificial turf. Now, have we played there since they've had the turf? It's only been there like 2 years.
We have not.
We have not, okay. I'm assuming it's gonna be similar, looks like a similar track as in Appleton County, that type of turf. You know, how does that, does it affect you mentally or physically? Do we have to make any kind of adjustments there as to, in preparation for a turf field versus grass?
I mean, turf and grass, we're so used to grass that, you know, when you get on turf, you are sped up a little bit. The speed of the game is sped up. I mean, people that may not be as fast on grass, they're faster on turf. And, you know, turf is hard, you know, to get traction sometimes. You got to make sure you have the right cleats, make sure, you know, your cleats aren't all the way worn down, because if they are worn down, you know, you're not going to catch enough traction. I mean, that's the only difference, honestly. I mean, if we were playing in the daytime, yeah, there would be some heat issues,
right.
You know, or if we were playing back at the beginning of the season, I would say yes, when we played Appleton, you know, there may be a little heat issue because they do have a lot of black on their turf compared to Appleton. They have a lot more red. But now, since it's cooling down, you know, I don't think there's the heat factor's the issue. I think it's more of, you know, keep your feet. You know, if I'm going to make a tackle or something like that defensively, I can't have as wide of a base when I do, because I'm not going to have enough traction like I would on grass.
Okay.
Cuts, as far as cuts, you got to stay inside your frame of your body, inside your shoulders when you're making cuts and everything like that, offensively and everything. But, you know, we've played on turf with Appleton. You know, we had little slips there, here and there and stuff like that. One was a cleat issue.
Right.
We had a kid using a practice cleat instead of his game cleat, but we made that switch and he ended up getting right cleats on and was able to perform better. And, but, you know, other than that, I mean, the heat's not a factor. It's just, you gotta be able to cut a little different, if that makes sense. So.
All right. Well, that answers that question. Now, what are we going to face when we go to East Lawrence from a offensive? I don't know which one of you want to describe the offense versus defense. I know.
I mean, you know, defensively they're going to do some things that we've kind of seen a couple of times through the year. You know, they've got some athletes. You know, they got a couple of guys on the defensive line that, you know, we're going to have to make sure that we do our assignments against. But you know, it's going to be one of those games where, you know, if we'll go down and execute the way that we should, you know, we get off the ball, we stay physical down there, and move people around, we should be able to move the ball. You know, passing wise, I think we've got a couple of things in that are going to bring some success to us. But really, it's another game. You know, it doesn't matter the opponent. You know, we scheme and do things like that, but it's somebody in a different color uniform that we get to go out and play against. So that's our plan right now.
Okay.
Defensively, their offense is similar to Appleton. You know, they run a lot of the same formations Appleton County did, a lot of the same plays. You know, they like to go 50-50 with run and pass. So being stout in the run and being stout in the pass, being greedy when the ball's in the air is a big emphasis this week, you know, because they want to air it out. I mean, they want to be a spread offense, but, you know, they have to run it every once in a while to keep you honest. And so, you know, they have a good group of receivers. You know, they have a good quarterback, you know, and they got a good little running back trio. They roll in and out. But, you know, like Coach Coley said, you know, we got to be physical with them. We got to, you know, match it and then surpass it, you know, to really set the tone. You know, the big thing with my group of linebackers that I did with them this week was, you know, we got to match it, surpass it, and maintain it. You know, the physicality can't just be matched and then surpassed. It's got to be maintained.
That's right.
And so that's from quarter 1 to quarter 4, you know. And it's we can talk scheme and everything like that, but at the end of the day, you just got to put the ball down. It don't matter where you put it out in the parking lot. You know, it's a different cut, like Coach says, different color jersey, different team. We just get an opportunity to play ball.
Well, we're excited about seeing some more football. I know that game, again, a couple weeks ago really stirred, I think it stirred our team, it stirred the staff, it's definitely stirred our our school and our community, because it was one of the most crowded, one of the biggest games that we've had here in a while. It was, again, homecoming, but folks stayed in the stands till the time ran out, and they saw a product on the field that started a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago now, and we're seeing the fruition of that, of the culture that you guys keep talking about, and that mentality, that physicality that you have brought through the weight room that we've discussed about. And Matt, Coach Wilson, it says is one of this, and we all know that's one of the things that you can make the biggest impact, the biggest difference is strength, and then knowing what to do with that strength, and then some athleticism that we definitely have, and that was something I felt like we matched up very well with Clinch. They've always got some athletes, and they had that number 11. He was a really good at. Number 4 was pretty good runner too. And they've always got that 1 or 2, 3, 4 guys, but guess what? We got 1 or 2, 3, 4 guys too. And we got some size up front, and you keep saying, and I believe it. We're a physical team, and I believe that's what we're going to bring to Dublin tomorrow night is a physicality that that people's going to have to come to expect from Bacon County, and it's between the ears, like you said. It's the guys have got to be focused and lasered in on what you've been coaching this week and the week before. But ultimately, I think they'll be prepared for that task, and we're excited to. As always, we're pretty sure we'll be broadcasting live, but we always encourage you to go and be in the stands and support these young men. If you can't make it, that's what we're there for. But again, we encourage you to show up and show out at East Lawrence. Get up here a little bit earlier. Dublin, they got a few neat places to eat that's a little different from around here. So enjoy you a meal and then go on to the stadium. And it's a pretty place. That field is. I was watching a little film the other day, and the turf looks great. And it's again a nice stadium. So come over and support your Red Raiders tomorrow night. They'll be kicking it off at 7:30 at East Lawrence High School, which is basically East Dublin. So take that. It's not too terribly long drive, and come support our Red Raiders, as well as the band and the cheerleaders and all that goes into this that makes our program a success and competitive. There's just a lot of working parts and a lot of people behind the scenes. I want to thank all the sponsors that you'll see a few commercials for on the broadcast. I just don't take the time to necessarily talk about them audibly. So I want to thank all of them for making all of this possible. Guys, I appreciate you joining me today. Again, Coach Noble Coley, offensive line coach, Coach Austin Wilder, his special teams and linebackers coach. And we talked a little bit on the last show. If you didn't watch the last show, he talks a little bit about recruiting. He's a recruiting coordinator for our guys. Man, he has some great things to say and some insight onto why it's so important for our young men to have an opportunity to get an education and maybe play some football after high school. So again, join us tomorrow night at the football game, 7:30 East Lawrence, as your Red Raiders take on the Falcons.